So joining us now are exceptional trainees in ovarian cancer research. They join us tonight from labs and hospitals across the country to share what drew them into this field, the important and exciting work that they're conducting, and how they hope to positively impact women living with ovarian cancer. Moderating this session, we have Dr. Alicia Tone, OVCAN Project Manager and Scientific Advisor with Ovarian Cancer Canada, whom we've heard from earlier and who has also been very busy answering questions. So thank you, Alicia. And Alicia will be joined by Donna Pepin. Donna is a Teal sister who was diagnosed in 2006. Since 2008, she has worked tirelessly for this cause, speaking in a variety of different community settings. As an advocate and public speaker, Donna's goal has been the same for 15 years. To raise awareness of this disease in Canada by educating women, the general public, and medical professionals. Today, Donna is a patient representative on the OVCAN Governing Council, and she also serves as a patient co-lead for Ovarian Cancer Canada's Patient Partners and Research Team. Welcome, Donna and Alicia.
Thank you, Stephanie, and hello to the ovarian cancer community across Canada and everywhere else. My name is Donna Pepin, and I was diagnosed with a rare ovarian cancer almost 17 years ago in 2006. And after a year of chemotherapies and surgery, I was able to live cancer-free for 9 years. But like many of us, or most of us, my disease came back. And in 2016, I was diagnosed with recurrent metastatic ovarian cancer. My type of disease is low-grade serous. It's a rare one that affects fewer than 5% of all ovarian cancer patients. I am currently living with my disease, and I'm a patient at Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto. I was shocked when my disease recurred, but I was even more shocked when I learned that 10 years after my original diagnosis, the standard of care for my disease had not changed. The standard of care was the same as it had been in 2006. There were no new treatments, no new data for my disease, nothing had changed, and my disease had remained understudied and misunderstood. I think my story perfectly illustrates the desperate need for research. And my story is one of thousands of stories just like it. As a volunteer with Ovarian Cancer Canada, the work I am most proud of is as a member of our National Patient Partners and Research Team. As a team, we are honored to be the voices of ovarian cancer patients across Canada. We have the opportunity to tell science what we need and about what's important to ovarian cancer patients. As a team, we have influenced the direction of research. The power of our voices is indisputable. Rare disease trials are coming, and they are coming because of us. The face of our disease is finally changing because of research. And so today I'm excited to introduce to you 3 very special young Canadian women. Please meet Emma Gerber, Morgan Pugh-Toole, and Dalia Ibrahim. They are all research trainees, and each are working towards their own individual degrees. They are training in laboratories, conducting research, gathering data, analyzing research, and each of them is working towards their own specific research goal. And I like to think of our research trainees as our future knowledge makers. So let's meet them, and we'll start with Emma. Emma, you have said that from a very young age, you were interested in medicine and that you always knew that you wanted to help people. But you've also said that you never imagined yourself working in cancer biology or ovarian cancer research. And that's a surprising statement coming from someone who has already achieved so much in the ovarian cancer research field. Can you tell us more about you and how exactly did you come to work in ovarian cancer research, and where do you work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Donna. So I'm a PhD student at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute in the Sang and Berger labs. But I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo and moved to Ottawa in 2016 to start my undergraduate degree in biomedical science. I had planned throughout my undergrad to pursue medicine as a career, but having had some job experiences in research, I decided to apply to a master's program before possibly later continuing into medicine. And obviously, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing since I just signed on for a whole PhD program. I always knew that I was really interested in reproductive biology, and more specifically in female reproductive biology. And I expected that this would lead me into a career in obstetrics and gynecology. But as I was looking into researchers within the field of reproductive biology, I stumbled across my current supervisor's profile and read for the first time about the challenges of treating ovarian cancer because of chemoresistance. I'd probably never heard about ovarian cancer, let alone the need to understand treatment resistance and to develop new therapeutic options. That really touched me. And when I applied to my current lab, my supervisor and I immediately clicked, along with my other lab colleagues. At this point, the rest is history, but to your point, I would never have foreseen myself as a cancer biologist, even going into my final year of undergrad. But now I really wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you, Emma. And it struck me rather that you had never heard of ovarian cancer. I'd never heard of ovarian cancer either until I was diagnosed with it. So thank you for the significant contributions that you've already made in research, and we'll hear more about your work later on in this session.
So my question is for Dalia. So we understand that you became interested in cancer at a very young age when you spent time at a children's hospital volunteering in the pediatric oncology unit. You then went to attend the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research and had the chance to meet ovarian cancer patients for the first time. Can you tell us how these experiences impacted you and how you came to work with Dr. Barbara Vanderheiden?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alicia. So I developed a liking for science at a young age. I was also always fascinated by biology, how the human body functioned, and I wanted to take that passion and find a career where I felt like I could make a positive impact. And so I became interested in the thought of pediatrics, so being a children's doctor. I decided to start volunteering at the Children's Hospital here in Ottawa when I was 16 on the oncology unit. And I truly value the chances I've had to spend time with these patients and families for the last 6 years. From this experience, though, a key realization I had was how much research was still required for improving cancer treatments, and I decided I wanted to make a contribution to medicine through research. At this point, similarly to Emma, I honestly had no idea about ovarian cancer. I hadn't had much exposure to cancer biology because it's not touched on much in high school, but I decided to give it a shot. I reached out to many scientists to see if they would take me on as a student, and Dr. Barbara Vanderheiden gave me the amazing opportunity to contribute to ovarian cancer research. Through this, I had the chance to attend the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research, and it was the session where trainees had lunch with ovarian cancer patient partners that was truly inspirational. I began to understand how important research is for providing patients and their families with hope for a future where we can have improved outcomes for women diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And from there, I knew that this was the field I wanted to continue my research career in, and Dr. Barbara Vanderheiden has allowed me to continue following that passion. So I'm currently a first-year master's student in her lab, and I hope to continue to be part of the large community trying to improve treatment outcomes.
Thank you, Dalia. So I can really relate to your comments on how interacting with people with lived experience with ovarian cancer can have a huge impact as a former trainee myself. In fact, I say this all the time that interacting with patients early on in my training ultimately shaped my career path. And I now have the honor of witnessing the flip side, i.e. how these same interactions have a lasting impact on patients.
Morgan, you have shared that when you were a young girl, your 12-year-old friend was diagnosed with leukemia. And I imagine as a child, you were greatly impacted when you watched your friend and her family go through the ordeal of cancer. And I also understand that as a young adult, you as well attended the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research. Can you tell us, please, how meeting ovarian cancer patients at the conference has influenced your career path? And how exactly did you come to work in a lab with Dr. Jeanette Boudreau?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Donna. So as Donna said, I'm Morgan and I'm a second-year master's student at Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia, and I'm currently in the process of transferring to my PhD. So as you mentioned, I was exposed to cancer at a very young age when my childhood best friend was diagnosed with leukemia. I watched her go through what to me seemed completely unthinkable for a 12-year-old. And for over a year, this went on, and I saw the immense toll it took not only on her, but on her family as well. Thankfully, she went into remission and she has remained cancer-free to this day. But having watched someone go through this experience definitely motivated me to pursue cancer research. I was notably very inspired by her oncologist at the time, who was a clinician scientist. And they did a really, really great job of engaging my friend and her family and her close friends in the research he was conducting at the time on her disease. I distinctly remember once him taking us down to a tour of his lab where he showed me my friend's cancer cells on a microscope, and he had put a smiley face on her healthy cells and a sad face on her cancer cells. And it was basically from that moment on, I always knew I had an interest in research. So when I finally made it to my undergrad here at Dal, I was really motivated to begin working in cancer research. And after taking an immunology course taught by Dr. Jeanette Boudreau, I became very interested in working on cancer immunotherapy. And I was very fortunate to find a position in her lab where I now study ovarian cancer, and I've been here for about 4 years now. So very early in my cancer research career, I was also very fortunate to attend the Canadian Conference on Ovarian Cancer Research, where I not only had the opportunity to give a talk on my research, but I also had many opportunities to interact with the wonderful patient partners that are a part of Ovarian Cancer Canada. I think having this opportunity to discuss their experiences as patients has really put into perspective the work I'm doing, and it truly motivates me to work towards finding new treatment strategies for these patients.
Thank you, Morgan. I love that story. Well today.
So Emma, your research has involved looking at a protein in the blood to learn whether it could be used to detect cancer at an earlier stage than CA-125, or if it may be able to predict response to chemotherapy. What was the outcome of your research? And moving forward, how could the results of your study be used by other scientists?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what you just described was my master's project, and I learned so much during this process. So like you said, we were measuring a protein called gelsolin, which is found in the blood of pretty much everybody. But we know from our work in the context of ovarian cancer that this protein in ovarian cancer cells is contributing to chemoresistance. But we wanted to find out if its levels in the blood, more specifically than in the tumor, would tell us any more information about an individual's cancer. So thanks to many women agreeing to donate their blood samples to research over a number of years, we were able to measure this protein in the blood of around 100 ovarian cancer patients. And we found that while it doesn't seem to be associated with earlier stage disease like we had maybe hoped, it was highly associated with resistance to chemotherapy. And what I think is really interesting about this research is that these blood samples were collected before any of these women had undergone any kinds of treatment, which means that gelsolin could possibly be a biomarker to inform oncologists of whether an individual patient will or won't respond to chemo before they're actually given the treatment. And Donna, I know that based on conversations that we've had, we've talked about how important this could be just from the perspective that chemotherapy is so hard on the body, and having a way to identify ahead of time if an individual's response will be worth the course of treatment could be so beneficial. So this is just an early study, but I'm really hoping that these findings will be further validated and could possibly be translated into a clinical setting.
Amazing. I'd also like our audience to know that your study, Emma, was published earlier this year in the Journal of Ovarian Research. So big congratulations to you. And what a different world it would be for so many patients if your predictive biomarker could help to guide physicians in prescribing treatments, and of course, ultimately result in improving patient outcomes and reducing a lot of unnecessary suffering. Thank you. Dalia, you are currently studying the ovarian cancer tumor microenvironment in an attempt to understand how quickly a cancer will grow or metastasize, and also whether or not it will respond to chemotherapy. Can you tell us, please, a little more about your study? And can you also explain how our own immune cells play a role in helping cancer to grow?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Donna, for the question. So my project focuses on looking at this protein called transglutaminase 2. It has been shown that in ovarian cancer, there tends to be higher levels of this protein in the tumor and in some other cell types. What I'm doing is looking to see if this protein is involved in making an immune cell called macrophages more immune suppressive. This means seeing if this protein promotes the macrophages to release certain molecules that can signal to other key players in the immune system to stop killing the cancer cells. If we find that this is the case, then we plan on testing small drugs that can block the function of this protein to see if it could offer any therapeutic benefit, whether that be promoting killing of cancer cells or increasing the ability of these cancer cells to respond to other treatments such as chemotherapy. In general, there are several ways our immune system can play a role in helping cancer grow. For example, our immune system is programmed to recognize special targets on the surface of different cells. If the immune cells come across a target that it does not recognize, for example, a target on a tumor cell, then it knows to kill that specific cell. However, in the case of many cancers, the cancer cells are able to alter the targets on their surface, which makes it tricky for our immune system to recognize that the cancer cells do not belong there. In other cases, immune cells can attach to special proteins on cancer cells, which tells the immune cell to become inactivated and therefore allows the cancer cell to survive. This is why there's a tremendous amount of work being done to find treatments and ways to alter the immune system to make it better at fighting cancer.
Your work just sounds incredible, Dalia. Thank you. And we would all dream to imagine a world where chemotherapy is only given to patients when we know for certain that it would eradicate their disease. This would represent huge scientific progress. So thank you for your work.
So my question's for Morgan. You're focused on high-grade serous ovarian cancer, a disease that is aggressive and affects 70% of all epithelial ovarian cancer patients. So as Dr. Boudreau mentioned, immunotherapy treatments have shown to be greatly effective for many different types of cancers, but unfortunately not ovarian cancer. And you are attempting to learn why. Can you explain more about your work in establishing model systems and how you're using your model system to answer important questions on immunotherapy?
Yes, so thank you for your question. My work focuses on high-grade serous ovarian carcinoma, or HGSC. And as Jeanette mentioned earlier, for many cancers, immunotherapy has been a success story, but for some reason, it still has not yet worked for ovarian cancers. So in my research, we are both trying to understand why immunotherapy hasn't worked yet, and then also explore different types of immunotherapies that may work better for certain patients, basically based upon what their tumor looks like. So for us, this means looking at factors such as the mutations that patients have, but also how their tumors progress following other treatments. Our lab believes that for HGSC, we have not yet targeted the right type of immune cell. Many existing immunotherapies, which you heard about earlier, often target a type of immune cell called T cells, but our lab believes that we should try to target a different type of immune cells called natural killer immune cells. So we are exploring that now. The other part of my project is developing a model system, which we have named T-Slice, which we all heard about earlier. And this model gives us a way to study the ovarian cancer tumors, but in a way that more accurately represents a patient. So there are many other models to study cancer that exist, but they don't always represent each patient, as they kind of take a one-size-fits-all approach, if you will. So to help with this problem, we have developed T-Slice, which can be easily customized to represent different patients, and it allows us to rapidly screen new treatment options. Some existing model systems are quite complex and also require specialized training to be able to use them, which means they can't always become a useful tool for all researchers to use. So our model system T-Slice is really simple and it's easily customizable, which makes it accessible to all research labs to adapt to their own studies. So I will be using my T-Slice model to evaluate a natural killer cell immune cell type immunotherapy in combination with other treatments with the hope of identifying specific combinations of treatments that work best for different patients.
Thank you, Morgan. It's incredible to think that maybe one day we could harness our own immune cells and immune systems to kill ovarian cancer cells instead of relying on toxic chemotherapy drugs. And we're very excited to watch as your research progresses.
Emma, in addition to cancer research, you've shared that you're also passionate about working directly with patients. And that's something that people who are working in a research lab rarely get to do. You are committed to patient engagement, and you also believe that every research trainee could benefit from working with patients. Can you tell us, please, a little more about how implementing patient engagement has influenced and supported your research? And how has working with patients affected you personally?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that I noticed when I started my research in the lab was that it can be really hard to visualize the line between our research and the patients in the clinic. We understand that this research is very important. We know all the statistics about the disease. We understand ovarian cancer at a molecular level, but most of us don't necessarily have that human connection to what ovarian cancer is and its impact. Early on, I felt that my research was a bit abstract and up in the air. Around the same time, I learned about the push towards the push towards patient engagement and research, where patients are directly incorporated into research teams and help to guide research directions, interpret research outcomes, and share findings, among other things. And I immediately understood the value, but recognized that as laboratory scientists, most of us don't have any experience in talking to patients in our respective fields. So I received a small research grant to explore the how-to of patient engagement in a laboratory setting, which has led me to the opportunity to work with several of the patient partners in research from OCC, and I'm hoping to continue to do so throughout the duration of my PhD program. I think that implementing patient engagement in research has really given me the opportunity to hear perspectives that I never would have considered otherwise, especially as a person with no immediate or personal experience with ovarian cancer. And I find that engaging with patients has affected me personally in grounding my research and providing me with a lot of motivation to continue through the challenges of research. One thing that has resonated with me over the last year of working with you, Donna, is you saying that as ovarian cancer patients, it's all about hope. And I hope that we can both offer each other mutual hope and support, and that's a massive win.
For sure. Thank you, Emma. You said one day one of my, I think was become my all-time favorite quote, and that is that hope works both ways. So thanks for what you are providing to us.
So Dalia, in addition to your work in the research lab, you also believe that advocating for ovarian cancer is important. You're passionate about youth outreach, such as educating high school students about cancer through Let's Talk Cancer events, the very ones that Julie Pauling was talking about in the PPIR session. This sounds like a fantastic initiative. Can you please tell us more about this recent event?
Yeah, absolutely. So Let's Talk Science is an organization whose goal is to provide science-based programs to youth. Here in Ottawa, as part of Let's Talk Science, we have a cancer outreach group, and there are about 6 of us on the organizing committee. Emma's also part of our group, and an additional 20 volunteers. So our goal is to bring cancer-related activities to classrooms to expose youth to the field of cancer biology with the hopes of inspiring them to pursue a career in STEM and hopefully cancer research down the line. Recently, we hosted 160 students at our Faculty of Medicine Research Building in Ottawa for our Let's Talk Cancer event, where students got to learn more about cancer biology, do hands-on activities, network with students and professionals who are in the field of cancer biology. They got to hear from Dr. Barbara Vanderheiden and her journey to becoming a cancer scientist, and then a very inspirational talk from one of OCC's patient partners, Julie Pauling, who you heard from earlier this evening. What's great about this event was having the opportunity to introduce students to cancer biology and research, as it's not touched on very much in high school. And we hope that from these outreach events, we can inspire youth to consider careers in science and hopefully further down the line, a career in cancer research, because these students are the future of scientific progress.
Sorry, technical difficulties. So the fact that 160 high school students were able to hear from you guys, leading researchers, trainees, and those with lived experience is incredible. So early in their schooling. So I'm sure you inspired many in the audience to consider research as a future career path.
Yeah, that sounds like it was just such an amazing event, 160 students. Wow. Morgan, you also strongly believe in advocating for our disease. And recently you were able to showcase your research to the federal government during a lab tour in Halifax. And what was that like for you to have a chance to speak directly to someone in that position about your work and its potential impact? And did you ever think that you'd be involved in something like this?
So to begin with your last question, no, I never thought I would have the opportunity to be involved with something like this, especially as a trainee. But having had that lived experience of watching someone go through cancer treatment and also recognizing the desperate need for new treatments for ovarian cancers like HSC, it was truly amazing to have this experience and share our work. So just to provide a little bit of context, earlier this year, I was fortunate to have the opportunity to speak to two government officials, namely the Honorable Francois Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Science and Innovation, as well as Andy Fillmore, a fellow member of Parliament. So as politicians, they have the ability to influence change and promote initiatives such as those being taken by Ovarian Cancer Canada. However, they don't always spend their day-to-day engrossed in the science as we researchers do. So to be able to put them in our shoes for the day, bring them into our world and show them how important ovarian cancer research really is, and also showcase some of the groundbreaking work we're doing was a really, really unique and empowering experience to have as a trainee. Often as researchers, we exist in the background until our findings translate to the clinical side, as it feels like. So to be able to shine the light on the research not only happening in our lab, but in other labs across Canada, I feel like we've truly put Ovarian Cancer Canada's research efforts in the spotlight.
Thank you so much, Morgan. And I was privileged to be able to attend that lab tour in person. And I can attest to how effective you were at inspiring those in attendance at the lab tour at all levels. And I can't overstate the importance and the importance that we put into continuing our momentum in advocating for government funding for ovarian cancer research. So thank you.
Okay, and so to finish up, everyone, we just have one rapid fire question, same question for each of you. And the question is, as patients, how can we best support you and your work? How can we help you? We'll start with you, Emma.
Yeah, I think really, as I hope that I've conveyed up to this point, personally, I'm really motivated by your hope and your, interest in our work. And I hope that, being able to see and hear about what we do, continues to provide inspiration. And, getting to work with you has been really just a tremendous experience. So I think just being able to, work with you in our own work offers plenty of benefit.
Thanks, Emma. And Morgan, how about you?
So from my perspective, I feel like the best way is really just to keep engaging and keep the conversation going. We all just value patient input so much, as it really truly helps us to put into perspective the work we're doing. And it also helps us to make sure we're asking the right questions and taking all the right considerations in our own research. So I encourage any of you to reach out, start a conversation, and offer some input if you're interested, as it really can truly enhance the impact that our work has.
Great. And Dalia?
I'm very much going to echo what Emma and Morgan said, but I would say communicating and engaging with us. As researchers, we try our best to gear our projects towards what we think would help improve treatment options and diagnosis, but this doesn't necessarily reflect what's valuable to you. By engaging with us, we can ensure we conduct research that's valuable and most relevant to patient and loved ones affected by ovarian cancer.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to all of you. We do have a tiny bit of time for a few audience questions. I'm actually going to take something that was a comment in the chat and kind of turn it on its head as a question, and any of you can answer. So what I want to know is if you think that patient engagement should be a requirement for any grad student studying ovarian cancer research.
I can start by answering that one. As I've personally had experience so far in engaging with patient partners in my graduate studies, I think this has really shaped the way that I view my research and the motivation that I continue to get to continue. We all know very well that, research is really grueling and can be quite challenging. And so having these interactions is so beneficial. So right now, there's maybe a bit of a lack of infrastructure to make that happen from the university perspective. But I think that if, that can be prioritized in the future, that would be so beneficial to all of us.
Anyone else? Dalia?
I would also say, even beyond PhD studies, kind of extending that to almost every person who's working in the lab, every project. It would be so beneficial even as a master's student right now for our research associates or postdocs. It really offers us a different perspective that we may not have thought of initially. So I do think it definitely should be implemented, but as Emma said, I think there would just have to be a bit more infrastructure in order to make that happen.
Morgan, would you like to add to that? Not to call on you.
That's okay. I think I'm just mostly going to echo exactly what they both have just said. I think if we did have the infrastructure for it and the ability for it to be integrated into our programs, I think it could be very, very impactful. So just to make our research a little bit more, I guess, put it into real life or put it into perspective, like how to truly show the impact that our work could do, kind of help us ask the right questions, be a little bit more informed about what we're investigating. I think there truly could be some benefit there for sure.
Great. And there are some comments that are along those lines in the chat in terms of this should really be a condition of grant funding to include patient partners, as well as someone saying you have a cohort of committed patients ready to call on. So I don't think you'll have an issue with getting patients to work with you. There was one question about your work, Emma. It was about, oops, one moment. This is why it's hard to do both at the same time. So the question is, so when someone has reacted well to chemo once and then becomes resistant, does that mean that the protein you study is higher in the blood at that point? Do treatments that help become less resistant to chemo also affect this protein?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so in our study, we were focused on samples from patients that had not yet undergone any treatment. So this would have been before any surgery, before any chemotherapy. This would have been blood collected really at the time of diagnosis. And so what that would tell us is, what we're hoping anyways, is that that's telling us that a patient will or won't respond to chemo before any chemo is given. But we do get the question a lot about whether do we know if this tells us anything about after a patient has undergone chemotherapy, in a recurrent setting. And that's a question that we haven't answered yet, but is something that we've definitely thought about, as well as understanding how this protein might relate to resistance to other types of treatments. But yeah, so we've started to answer one question, but in research, we always find ourselves with more questions than we started with. So these are definitely avenues of future research.
Perfect. And someone also commented or asked, does OCC currently have, or could we build partnerships with universities to make the patient engagement for grad students happen? And I think that's a great idea that we should explore. So before I throw it over to Donna for final thoughts, I just want to read one more comment that happens to be from Kaylee Crawford, but I just think it's such a great comment, is that I just brought my 11-year-old daughter to come in to see you all speak. I wanted her to see such brilliant women share about the research with such passion. So thank you all. I just thought that perfectly summed up the vibe in the comment section right there.
Does it ever? And I was going to use the word brilliant as well. I hope that everyone in the audience today has been as inspired as I am by these three brilliant young women. And thank you so much for your work. And so to all of our listeners today, please do consider supporting research at any opportunity in any way that you can, because only science can save us.
And we have just put the slide back up on the screen. If you're interested in joining the Patient Partners in Research team, once again, you can contact Jessica Lawson, and we'll put her email in the chat as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Donna, Alicia, Dalia, Emma, and Morgan. I'm really pulling a theme here, and I love that it's the theme of collaboration and teamwork and interacting with the patients at an earlier stage. I also pulled a comment from the chat box, and it was from our CEO, Tanya Briones. And she says, I'm continually blown away by the brilliant minds that are dedicating their careers to ovarian cancer research. And I just couldn't agree more. And again, just want to thank you all so much for being here tonight and sharing with us your journey to becoming a trainee in ovarian cancer and your passion for your work.